No, because this was where scouts were sent outside or whatever. This is just to air blue back. Tons of boys do it. I tell you later about your camera. This is what we were all
Hey, don't let him push you, Lori. You're in charge. We know it.
Clayton, come here and assume the position. Yep, right here's great. So this is your official swearing in to be a member of the Prairie City Council. So if you'd raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and state your name,
I, Clayton Dowd,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Oklahoma,
and the Constitution of the State of Oklahoma,
and that I will not knowingly receive,
and I will not knowingly receive,
directly or indirectly,
directly or indirectly,
any money or other valuable thing
any money or other valuable thing
for the performance or non-performance
for the performance or non-performance
of any act or duty
of any act or duty
pertaining to my office,
pertaining to my office,
other than the compensation allowed by law.
other than the compensation allowed by law.
I further swear
I further swear
that I will faithfully discharge my duties
that I will faithfully discharge my duties
as City Council member
as City Council member
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
We did the hard part. This is downhill.
You gotta sign some new stuff.
Just sign the oath. It's just as you just said out loud. Except for one of those small changes.
Check that fine print. Don't worry about reading it, just.
Dixie wants to hear you.
Yeah.
Dixie wants to.
Yeah, that's right. You can go ahead and talk amongst yourselves. We got about 8 minutes to kill.
We are live on 10 though.
Yeah, we're live.
Nothing I can do. Bill, you got any good jokes?
Might as well liven it up.
Why didn't you just really crank your hands and spread it? That's what it is to keep going. Yeah. I know.
They were talking about that. Mary's a good thing to get a good snow for the Baylor. Want people for that. Yeah. People put them from out of their element. Well, I tell you what, I watched that. They can run over through you and around. I watched that tech game.
That's true.
I think their front line is so strong.
This is mom's stuff. And how many years ago was that? She said
It's been several years. She was, I think it's
well, I actually did. She called me back.
oh, she's,
She
you
was
know what,
so
I see,
aggressive.
you can
Let them get under snow.
she's going to the ball game. Well, she might have headed there, we should not her, but she's been at Bristol second.
Well, Chiefs, I was always a Chiefs fan. I was a Chiefs fan. I was
Mary, you could bring the thing in.
Just so you know. I mean, this is all we
By the time we read that,
potential site.
Well, I didn't not. But.
This is one of those typical health food guys. You never see that word. He wasn't even in the end zone. By the time you see
A little after.
Yeah, I saw all the videos I didn't watch it.
Watch Channel 4 tonight, they've been airing all. They got another angle.
I'm getting this guy. I've always wanted to do this.
He's in middle linebacker in college.
Oh, okay.
Well, the guys jumped up there when he hits it, so he just
That's what.
they kind of like that. That how we troll tags on that guy. He's bouncing.
like I'm glad they was falling hard.
So that was a big deal. I was about to say, man, that had hurt.
Oh, man.
Playing at Baylor's tough. But you know what's
No, this is 3 to scale. It's not going to put a box in there.
He's got
And I realized that 5.
came in at the end of the game.
Oh, yeah.
Back then, scored a touchdown.
Boy, you get to use that.
For this.
Man.
My daughter was.
Sorry. I mean, I don't.
But after that, that announcer said, that's why he's still nuts, you know, for eating your He's
Oh, that quarterback was.
on running.
He's the real deal.
Well, as long as they get
My mom was good for a while. He used to live in that one house on the six side, and then he comes to that one house.
Talks to teams, you can just think
First coming in, that first group of turn these orders, one house.
All right, let's go to work.
I'm ready.
I'll call to order the regular meeting of the Perry Municipal Authority for November 18, 2013 at 6:15. Roll call, please.
Stroller.
Here.
Dow. Here. Moxley.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Norman. Here. Nation.
Here.
Wade.
Here.
Warner. Hall.
Here. We do have a quorum present at this time. I'd like to invite Pastor Aaron Summers from the First Baptist Church Perry to lead us in our invocation. Pastor?
Thank you, Mayor Hall. I'd like to take just a second to thank you and to thank the council for the opportunity you give us each and every one of these meetings to begin this time in a word of prayer. I pray that that continues. Thank you for that. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the day that you've provided us, the opportunities for each and every one. Father, I pray tonight for this council. I pray for the new councilman that has been brought on tonight, swearing in. Lord, bless him and keep him throughout this time as he serves this city. Father, bless this council with wisdom, helping them to understand all that needs to happen, the way that it needs to happen, not only to honor the law, but Father, that we would also honor you as the giver of the law and the giver of life. Father, thank you for what you have given to us in Jesus Christ as we approach this time of year and this season where we will celebrate the birth of your Son and our Savior. In whose name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, at this time we'll move to item number 1, the consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda that's to receive and approve the minutes from our last gathering.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Will there be discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote.
Stroller.
Yes.
Dow.
Yes.
Moxley.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Norman.
Yes.
Nation.
Yes.
Wade.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes. Now we'll move to item number 4, comments from those assembled. Anybody wishing to make comments on items not on our PMA agenda, we'll take those from you. Comments from those assembled. Comments from those assembled. Comments from those assembled. Seeing none, we'll move to item number 5, proclamations, commendations, reports, and inquiries of the governing body. Last chance. I'm cutting it off right here. All right, we'll move to item number 6, new business. Any new business needs to come before the PMA. Seeing none, item 7 is in order.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
A motion second to adjourn, non-debatable, roll call.
Stroller.
Yes.
Dow.
Yes.
Moxley.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Norman.
Yes.
Nation.
Yes.
Wade.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes. All right, now I call to order the regular meeting of the City Council for the City of Perry. It's November 18th, 2013 at 6:17. Roll call, please.
Stroller.
Here.
Dow.
Here.
Moxley.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Norman.
Here.
Nation.
Here.
Wade.
Here.
Warner. Hall.
Here. We do have a quorum present. At this time, we'll move to the consent agenda. Item 1, items wishing to be removed. We'll take those.
Motion to approve? Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented this evening. Will there be discussion?
Slow around the table, Becky.
Seeing none, let's move to a vote.
Stroller.
Yes.
Dow.
Yes.
Moxley.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Norman.
Yes.
Nation.
Yes.
Wade.
Aye.
Hall.
Yes. Now move to item number 4, comments from those assembled. Anybody wishing to make comments not on our city council agenda, we'll take those from you. Comments from those assembled. Comments from those assembled? I think that'll be enough from the audience. We'll move to item number 5, proclamations, commendations, reports, and inquiries of the governing body. Seeing none, we'll move to item number 6 to take a presentation from Dean Turner, the CEO of the Perry Memorial Hospital Authority, with his quarterly update. Mr. Turner, nice to have you.
Mayor Hall. I had Dixie hand out to you a copy of the Community Needs Assessment, which several of you participated in. We finished up in June and July of this year. This is, and I'll make note of it here so I won't forget it later, this is part of the requirements that the Affordable Care Act has placed on nonprofit hospitals, that within every 3 years we are required to conduct a community needs assessment. The irony of all this is probably 60 to 75% of what we find in the community needs assessment has no application to the hospital at all. It is a program which is required and administered by the Internal Revenue Service. So you can imagine there are some penalties attached to not completing it. The irony to me is that Most hospitals do this anyway because we need to know what's going on with that. So I want to share that back with you. I'll get just a couple of highlights in it that were identified. It does provide some good information as to where the community's perception of issues are here. Many of those you're aware of. There is a concern about infant mortality. Obviously, we do not have physicians in the community that do obstetrics. So how do we address that as we go forward? That's something both the Department of Health and the hospital look at. Can we work with a physician outside the community that does obstetrics to help provide some of the prenatal care in that area? Concerns about aging population. While we have a nursing home here, there's no independent living or any other means where families can have mom and dad close to home and yet not living within the home. Give them some semblance there. Of course, obesity and physical fitness popped up there. For the hospital's perspective, the availability of primary care physicians. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. The availability of dentists in the community. Health education, quality daycare, preventative care issues, again, an issue the hospital can address. Mental health services, perhaps, as was announced last Friday by Health and Human Services, they have now as a requirement, again, part of the Affordable Care Act, mental health services must be put on a par with other health insurance. Primarily it's being directed at businesses, so that your health insurance programs in the future will have to provide it at the same level going forward. The uninsured population, well, we'll talk a little bit later about the Affordable Care Act and whether or not that's actually going to be able to address the uninsured population. Drug and alcohol abuse and tobacco abuse. So you'll see all of those within that plan, and it has been shared out with others in the community. It's also posted on the hospital's website. It can also be accessed through Oklahoma Rural Health Works, which is through the OSU extension for rural health care. So those programs are all there, as well as the underlying studies that could be used in the future. That's one of the big issues that the hospital board has worked on and I've worked on during this last summer. The other being getting the hospital to develop a strategic plan for the immediate future. That really is a 3-year plan as to where we go and what we do. They really boiled it down into 4 priorities. One that is usually on everyone's mind is that providing quality patient care. Now, you may argue about how you go about it and what those things ought to be, but there are national standards out there that we need to adhere to and follow to make sure we are providing quality care. In doing that, to look as well at how do we manage and change the perception in the community of how the hospital operates and what it does. When you're in a small community, or any hospital for that matter, that's been around a long time, you have a history. And that history, you have to recognize and deal with, but it can't keep you from doing what needs to be done in the future. So the board recognizes that and wants us to put a focus on that. I mentioned that as was pointed out in the community needs assessment, the need for additional physicians in this community. And as a target, the board looks at within the next 3 to 5 years, we need to add at least 3 physicians within this area. And as some of you may already know, we have 1 physician recruited that'll be here in July, Dr. Julian Cecil. And currently I'm talking with 2 physicians, one who is a colleague of his, that are very interested in coming to Perry. And so hopefully in my next meeting I'll be able to tell you we've made a commitment from that in one of those physicians to relocate here and join us at the hospital. We're also in that process looking at how we can structure, maybe in somewhere time in the future, of having a new clinic space. We will run out of that very quickly. When we do add these physicians, we have to have a place for them to practice. So we're looking at opportunities. So you may hear rumors in the community. No, we're not ready to build right now. But somewhere in the future, we need to have plans in place and thought processes so we can move in that direction when the time is right. We also are looking at the possibilities of how do we make ourselves relevant and expand services, both outpatient and inpatient. Some of the things we have done in the last few months with our outpatients, we have a second surgeon now coming to the hospital. Dr. Jared Vaughn is now here. We have a gastroenterologist, Dr. Jeffrey Lewis, who is beginning this month, just approved on board. So he'll be doing procedures at the hospital. Both of them are based out of Stillwater, but we've added their services here in Perry as well. And finally, I think what the hospital recognizes is, yes, we are small. And to be successful, we have to have relationships with larger facilities. And so the challenge for me going forward is to see if we can identify an affiliation type of relationship that will allow us to receive some services while we can have a place where we can definitely place patients who have a need beyond what we can provide here in this community. Now, most of those affiliations in the past have been very loose, and now we're looking at something that would help us move into a much more formalized relationship with that. When we look at Perry itself, at the hospital, we will be presenting to our board this next Monday night, a week from today, the audit for this last year in that, and I do believe a draft copy at least has been presented to you all. But, you know, a couple of things that'll be noted in that for the board is, as we look at it, is in the last year, we have seen a decline in our cash position. That has been actually a planned decline for two reasons. Just prior to my coming here, a year ago, we were finishing up on a renovation project in the hospital and finishing up some repairs on the exterior of the building. That amounted to about $1.2 million, which the board chose to pay for out of cash reserves. So we do see that. The other major factor that's playing into that as well is going to be of the development of electronic health records that's mandated. We've spent about $400,000 last year. We're scheduled to spend about $300,000 this year in equipment and services to bring that up to speed. There are incentives that are built in and a timing issue. For what we've done to date, we expect to receive just at $1.2 million in the middle of December. So we spent the funds, we've had to go back and prove the system works, and now those will be coming in, and that money will actually replenish a good bit of what we have spent in the last year and a half in that area. We are being impacted by sequestration. You don't hear a whole lot about it, but what that did to the hospital, it automatically reduced our payments by 2% from our budget. Until the federal government decides to actually have a budget they'll adhere to, we expect this to be the default mode for the future. They want to be able to agree, so immediately there will be this 2% reduction. That impacts us in how we're paid by Medicare and Medicaid, and mostly for the hospital inpatients, that's Medicare in our payment structures. There are no real issues with the audit. I think you'll see that when it is received. And as we go forward, we are looking at this being a rebuilding issue to get the physicians in here, to get the infrastructure, and help to find the services that we need for the community and for the hospital in the long term. But what all boils down to right now is the Affordable Care Act, I think, and what impact that is going to have. I tried to tell my board a month ago, I'd come back to them and tell them, you know, this is what it looks like. Well, as Gordon can attest, I gallantly said, I'm sorry, I can't do it because I can't figure out what's going on, to be honest with you. As we have seen going forward, there are continual problems now with the websites and the people to get onto the system, to make application, and other problems have begun to surface. The whole premise of the Affordable Care Act, it was based on two things. One, to expand Medicaid in states, and the second was to provide insurance coverage to some 46 million plus people over the next couple of years. Both of those things are not working quite so well. Within the Oklahoma, we are one of the states that has not expanded Medicaid. And, you know, it gets put out there as being a bipartisan issue, being Democrat, Republican. I don't agree with that at all. I don't think it's a bipartisan issue at all. It's a concern when you understand how Medicaid is funded and provided within the states, why I would feel Governor Fallon would step back and say, wait a minute, we don't want to be on the hook for this. About 2/3 of the funding for Medicaid programs in any state is provided by the federal government, but it's done in such a way that it matches what the state budgets to do. So if the state, as an example, Oklahoma spends $1, the federal government will provide $2 to the state to do that. And in some respects, that's a really good deal, if you can support the infrastructure and functions that are needed. However, if funding from the federal level decreases, you not only lose that dollar, but you lose funding that you can provide. When you're dealing with a program like Medicaid, you've insured people, you've expanded services, you've made a promise to provide these types of services to individuals. And so it ripples on down, and we've experienced that. In fact, the whole country has through the recession. That funding went down, and there were detrimental effects in all programs. So there is a great deal of reluctance, I feel, among several states, and I believe with Governor Fallon, to make those kind of commitments as you go forward, to know you're not just committing for the now, but for the future. And once these things are in place, you have great difficulty taking that kind of entitlement mentality away from individuals as you go forward. Now, that being said, I have a hard time giving up federal money. And so I strongly encourage the governor and the legislature of the state to look for ways that they can creatively take use of these resources. They have done that in the past with a program called Insure Oklahoma. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, but they've used the funding that technically had been provided for Medicaid services to help small businesses and individuals who didn't qualify for Medicaid. And at this point, it has benefited a little over 30,000 Oklahomans in that. Initially, that was going to go away this year. They've been able to craft it a little bit, given an extension for 1 year that continues to provide some of those benefits to small businesses. They've changed it a little bit, but it gives time for people to take a look at it and see what we can do. To me, it's a program that's been in place here in the state since 2004. It was a great model to work with. In fact, several other states have come up and looked for exemptions from Medicaid in implementing the expansion process with programs that are very similar there. So I hope that will lead to some increases and some changes that will allow Oklahoma to benefit from that money. The federal government's going to spend the money. It's just a matter of who they're going to give it to. And in my opinion, not come here. So how that can happen, if you hear it, you know, anything you can do to encourage our state legislatures to come up with a solution would be a great idea. There are some good things, I think, that the Affordable Care Act has promoted. It is something that needs to happen to provide health care in a consistent manner. They have expanded preventative services. Those have become integral to what's supposed to be there. They've eliminated pre-existing conditions, those exclusions. They've removed lifetime caps. The only thing to keep in mind is those are all things that cost money. And so they have to be paid for in some way. And their ideas of how that is to be paid is that this 46 million uninsured population, particularly the young people, have to buy this insurance. And they have to be able to use it in order to offset those other individuals who are going to really need to have coverage for pre-existing conditions and other services. Unfortunately, as we have been witnessing since October 1st, the computer systems don't work. And it's a little bit beyond me about that, because in my opinion, it would have been very easy to capitalize as those states that are running their own exchanges did by going to the insurance market, where you can still go out and you can pull up those insurances, including the ones that are on the exchange, and do some comparisons. But on the federal marketplace exchanges, you cannot. As of today, I still can't get on to that service to see what's going on in there. What was announced last Wednesday was, as of that date, they had enrolled 106,000 people. Now that was nationally. Only 27,000 had been enrolled through the federal exchanges in 36 states. That's 750 people per state on average. Now, what that enrollment means is they have signed up, but they haven't paid. And that's the distinction between the federal government and insurance. They don't count you in insurance until you pay. The federal government counts you when you go online and you sign up. The other states did a lot better. There's 14 of them, plus the District of Columbia, have signed up 79,000. Unfortunately, 35,000 of them were in California alone. So you can see they've got a long way to go. They had anticipated having well over 500,000 people signed up at this point. And you've seen the concerns that have been expressed by individuals losing their insurance coverage. And last week with President Obama coming on Thursday and saying, well, we're going to fix this, you can keep it. That's going to create its own basis of problems out there, because everything was based on, quite frankly, that those people would lose their insurance. It would be purchased from the marketplace. In fact, the legislation, when it was approved, estimated 40 to 67% of people would lose their insurance that had it currently. However, that's not what was communicated. So, what's going to happen in the future? I don't know. There's a great sensitivity as to how that'll play out. There are two things I do know. One, that influx of individuals who will eventually be covered by insurance really doesn't help us here in Perry. And here's why. Those policies offered on the insurance exchanges are very narrowly focused. And they're focused that way so that they could offer a low-cost policy. So that, from an economics point of view, says you've got to work on volume, which means not everybody can play in the game. And in our case, Perry Memorial Hospital is not included in Blue Cross's or in Coventry's insurance, and those are the only two offering in this area. Also means the physicians aren't included either. So if individuals in our community benefit from this by having the insurance, going through the exchanges, if they can afford it, they have to leave our area in order to receive health care. And that's a negative focus. And I think all of you understand very well the idea there is no free lunch. And even though much of this, for those who don't have insurance now, they can get coverage through the marketplace. And if you make less than 400% of the poverty guidelines, now for a single individual, that's, if you make less than $45,000, you can qualify for some kind of subsidy from the IRS. You may get part of it paid for, you may get part of it free, but on the other end of this, once you go to use it, you're going to have to pay something. And while there are some 21 different plans out there that people can choose from right now, in those groupings it varies the cost significantly. Some of them don't pay for an office visit in a physician's office. You want to pay more, you can get that covered. But all of them have coinsurance and deductibles that people aren't used to paying. And they're not cheap coinsurance and deductibles. They range anywhere from $3,500 to $6,000 per individual. So from my perspective, it doesn't help me at the hospital. If you come in and you have to be hospitalized, you have to pay. What I found interesting in searching the website is it didn't really make a whole lot of mention of this, but there was this little blue wording there that said coinsurance deductible. So you clicked on it and it gave you an example. But it clearly said at the very end, you will be expected to pay this before your insurance pays anything. And so I think people are going to be in for a rude awakening. Now, this all kind of sounds negative. I hope it sounds more realistic. I do believe people need to have health care and need to have coverage. I'm skeptical, as this is all rolled out, that the process put before us right now is actually going to provide the solutions we expect and need. But it's what we have to work with, and it's what we will be managing with through the hospital as we go forward. As I said to begin, it's hard to get good information as to what's really happening with Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act at this point. And to really see what it's going to do to us, a lot of speculation right now. And from my perspective, a lot of it is a negative speculation. It just doesn't look very good. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer for you about things that have been going on at the hospital or where we may be trying to move some processes.
Dean, as it relates to the Affordable Care Act, I had an opportunity to sit in on a presentation that your hospital association CEO put on. Of course, he's out there advocating these very same issues. I think you all have the same notes because he said the exact same thing. A couple of things I'm interested in getting your take on that he mentioned is that he was real concerned, even with the sequester issue and the 2%, which he said was out there. Even still, the Medicare reimbursements are not staying up with the actual cost to provide the service, and that's going to continue to get worse and worse. So I was curious on your take on what, if anything, the hospital can do, and if the hospital can't do anything, where does the fix happen? Because the Affordable Care Act is certainly not addressing that issue.
No, it's not, Chuck. There's a premise that comes out of having the Affordable Care Act and insurance. And there is this idea that everybody has insurance, therefore they're all covered. And I just mentioned they have big deductibles. And by the way, the Affordable Care Act also requires the hospital to have policies in place of that pretty much mirror that 300 to 400% poverty guideline. So a lot of this will either go to bad debt or will go into charity care. So for my benefit, there is none. However, the insurance companies and the legislators in Washington see this as, well, everyone's got insurance, therefore it ought to be spread more evenly. We don't have to bear as much of the burden. That is Medicare, Medicaid, and I have this great fear that the other insurers will see it the same, because they've been footing the bill for many, many years to help make up the difference. You, as you know, pay more. They pay more to make up for the shortfall with Medicare and Medicaid. So how does the hospital address it? I don't have any firm answers. We have to get creative. Ever since I've been in healthcare, which has been since the early 80s, there have been continual changes where we've had to figure out a way to adapt to differences. How that might look in the future, you may wind up not doing something. You may wind up where we have to face the idea that you restrict services, or that services are only offered certain days, certain times, those types of issues. You also have to figure out how, through resources, that you can deal with your biggest asset is your people, but how you have to deal with it with maybe less of them, or less skilled individuals. And you begin to see that. How the country has dealt, for example, with shortages with physicians, is now you see physician extenders, nurse practitioners, and PAs that actively practice in communities. 10 years ago, you didn't see that. They weren't there. And now they're just a part of everyday practice. It's happening in other areas as well, with physical therapy assistants and aides in different ways. So you take one skilled person or two and you use others underneath them in their supervision to try to meet the needs of the community. Does that give you?
Yeah, no, it does. And one of the things that's just terrible about this, and you had touched on it, was this notion of that the patient, is gonna have to pay first before the insurance pays. That's a complete flip to the way it used to be. And when you start talking about the bad debt, the charity care, we've been through this for years. We're a small community, close-knit, you do what you can through the collection process, and the absolute last resort is to go to some sort of public, through some sort of public collection process. And even then, I know how much your board hates that. But now it looks like that you're being pointed into a corner, where you're gonna have to aggressively, pursue payment, before you get, your meat.
Right.
Whereas before, at least you probably got the essential services covered through the insurance before, maybe this is a bad, you'll scold me later for saying this, but before you get to the profit side, of the collection
I
process.
want you to come help me find the profit.
Yeah, exactly. But you're gonna be forced now to aggressively, go after in the collection process much differently than you've operated in the past. And I think the community's gonna have to understand that, that you're gonna have to be paid first by the public before you get the reimbursements.
And you're absolutely right, and I know as Gordon knows, sitting on the board, it's a topic I bring up almost every month, just so that we begin to understand that, and we are looking at all those processes. How do we do it? Are there things we can provide? Are there options that we can go out there? What you also see happening is there are some entities that might do laboratory or x-ray or other services where theirs is cash on the barrelhead. You come in, you pay cash, and we'll help you finance it. And they may be less than what it would cost with insurance. In many cases they are. But they want their money up front. And it may be cheaper than insurance. The only caveat I remind people, if you've got insurance, whatever you paid them doesn't count against that deductible that you still have to pay if something else happens.
Well, and then finally, see if the other council has any other questions, but another thing that he brought up, and we were actually talking about it at lunch today, I'd be curious your take. You talked about how there are a couple of big providers here that aren't even, naming, the hospital as a potential provider. And additionally, doctors. And one of the concerns that I have, and your state association exec had the same concern, that a lot of these doctors are being dropped from the approved provider list. And it's quite possible that even with these new doctors that you're bringing on, there's no guarantee that they'll even be, be on the approved provider list once they're here.
Correct. Now, I would say that to keep in mind that it's those groups right now that are part of this insurance exchange. And so it is a select, very focused group of individuals, those that currently are uninsured. And you can still go out and buy insurance. The downside probably right now is that insurance cost, as much as they want to tout it being cheap, is going to go up. And if they're unsuccessful in signing up individuals, it's going to go up big time. Because that's what they've counted on to be able to try to keep the playing field somewhat level. So at the moment, it's just within those exchange programs that are being subsidized by the federal government. If you can get it outside of that and pay for it yourself, that's great. You don't have to deal with meeting any of the federal requirements. But I do think that's a problem. And I think it's in, I don't remember, it's Connecticut or Massachusetts, there's a big fight going on right now with physicians who have been removed from panels because they challenged something, and it was, well, we didn't do it because you challenged us. Well, it just happened to be within 5 weeks, 6 weeks of when they made the challenge on some payments that they should have received and didn't. That suddenly they're out of the program. So yeah, I think that's a real concern. We have talked with Blue Cross about the hospital, and they said wait till next summer and we'll see if we can get you in. I wasn't real thrilled with their rates. They were essentially Medicaid rates to us. But I guess in one respect I'd rather have them than nothing at all too. So they've kind of got you as you go forward. Now, I tend to try to find the positive in things, and I do believe we can come up with solutions on how to deal with all this. It won't be easy. It may not be the exact systems that we would like to see in place, but I understand that from one perspective, we fortunately are much better off than probably 98% of the small hospitals in this state because of prior leadership, prior boards that have been very careful and judicious as to what they've spent. So my working with our current board is to make sure we continue that. We plan for the future. We invest where we need to. Right now, that investment is in physicians and making sure we have solid equipment to provide to this community. If we can do that, then I do think we will draw and maintain more people here for healthcare.
Any other questions by the body? Dean, thank you for coming in. I think you would agree that the takeaway here, from your presentation, particularly as it relates to the Affordable Care Act. I remember saying this years ago when many of us that have been around that hospital for a long time could say the same thing. Even 20 years ago, we were saying we're in better shape than 98% of the community hospitals in Oklahoma, and I think that's played out as you see these rural hospitals starting to close down or sell, to larger conglomerates. I always used to say that don't worry about us, we're going to be the last to fail, but we will be the last to fail. And I think the takeaway here is utilization. If the citizens of this community want and value a community hospital, they've got to use it. Is the bottom line. And if your provider is not using Oklahoma or Perry Memorial as a facility, you need to be talking to them. And then once you utilize the service, you got to be good with your payments too, because otherwise we're simply going to use it. All of the cash and all of the good condition that hospital is in will slowly and methodically be eroded away by this charity care and bad debt. Slowly and slowly and slowly, and as a result of the Medicare reimbursements not staying up with the actual cost of the service. And so I think that's why you're exactly right, that we're a lot better off than the rest. But that doesn't mean that with every year that goes by, it's not going to be slowly chiseled away at. So utilization. Thank you for your
I
report.
have a couple of questions if you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
The new positions you were talking about possibly bringing in, will they be providing services for our elderly? Because I believe there's a problem here, and I may be wrong, but I've been hearing that we have some elderly that can't get services here.
Well, when you bring in new physicians, it opens up, the existing physicians here are extremely busy. And, I know at times, that they've been, I'll talk to them, they see upwards of 30 to 40 patients a day, and that is a lot of people to see. So at some point they say, we just can't take anymore. So yes, from that perspective, it will open up a lot of slots where people will be available. They will have the availability to see more of the people locally. Now, as with any good physician, they need to know what they know and particularly know what they don't know so that they can refer that person on to specialty care somewhere else if they have a particular need.
What is your plans for the facility across the street when the highway patrol move out of that? Is that going to be like a physician's clinic maybe? Or?
Well, we're assessing that right now. That has a possibility. It may be where I get housed, to tell you the truth.
Once you're out.
Because as some of you know, the one wing of that hospital, I guess it was in '85 or so when it was added, was designed as physician clinic space, and where my office is now was one of the physician areas. The plumbing and all is still in the walls there, and so it may make more sense to reconfigure that much more easily than trying to go across the hall when the highway patrol is out of there and try to reconfigure it, put the proper plumbing in and things that might be needed. So we're looking at that process right now as to what would be best to do and when we need to do it. As I said, the board is very conscious of the money, as am I, and what's the timing for this to happen. that would be the interim step. Longer term is could we have hopefully grow some services and businesses, have more physicians, and have a clinic. We're looking to that long term as well. And part of their process is to do a master plan in this next year that would help us to look to that and say, what do we need to do and what's the next step?
Thank you.
Bill raises a good point. When you bring these new doctors in, I guess they'll be employees of the hospital, right?
Correct.
Not contract.
No, these physicians, we're actually employing them. They have a contract with us,
Right.
but it's an employment agreement with some expectations. Of course, we're investing in them as well. We invest in their education, and we invest in them and their families coming here, but they will be employees.
Is one of those expectations to require them to take Medicaid?
Oh, absolutely. They will take Medicaid. They will take the insurance we tell them they have to take in order to serve this community.
Other questions or comments of Dean? I hope you don't feel like you were grilled. I think this is
No,
an interesting
I
topic.
was hoping there'd be questions.
I have one more. How is the physician that stays there, that does your emergency room and stuff, how's that working out, having a guy on staff just for that?
Well, that's actually worked really well. It has. They also function as kind of a hospitalist. They actually admit patients to the hospital as well. And more recently, Dr. Hartwig has decided, because he's got his kids are in high school, middle school, that he's just going to let them handle his patients when they need to be admitted to the hospital. And we're in the process of trying to make sure that gets communicated. And it's pretty much become the standard that outside of Perry, if you went to any other facility, very few of the primary care or family physicians actually take care of patients in the hospital. That presents some unique issues for us to have to deal with, but that has been working out very well in dealing with that. Now, the only challenge when you do have a company like that is we will come up this next year. 2 of those physicians are finishing their residencies, and we'll have to find 2 new physicians to replace them. But so far, that's worked well.
So does like Dr. Hartwig, or maybe not him, Dr. Baird, we use it for example, is he allowed to do emergency room services, or is it just that, the other gentleman?
No, we have that other physician contracted to be there. If they wish to come over and see a patient in the emergency room, they may. We hold them to the same standard we would have held them to before. They have to respond in a timely manner, and if not, then that other physician will step in if it's an urgent situation. Sometimes they'll send someone to the emergency department because they think something's developed and they want to run some tests, and then they want to come over and see them. And we'll accommodate that. But if something is happening with the physician or with the patient and the nurse or the physician sees it, we just made it clear he is to step in, or she, whoever the physician is.
Thank you. Anybody else? Dean, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll move to item number 7, which is the city manager's report. Mary?
I think it's really helpful when Dean comes to the council meetings and makes those presentations. They're informal, but yet allows us to ask questions and be better informed. And so I really appreciate that. Just a few items this evening on the manager's report. The City of Perry recently hosted basic operator training for water and wastewater. Through our membership in the Oklahoma Rural Water Association, we were able to get that training provided to us free of charge. And then in addition to Perry, there were a number of other communities that sent employees to Perry here to participate in the training. So hopefully they bought some food, maybe filled up their vehicles with gas while they were here. And the room was full. I think there was 2 days for each for water and 2 days for wastewater, and I think there were about 20 people in there, for both days. So there were quite a few extra people from outside the community that took advantage of this. And so, we're anticipating that we'll be able to host future training sessions. We set up they were at the end of the training, they were able to take their test and know whether or not, I don't know if they got immediate results from their test or not, but Joel came in and set up a bank of computers so that they could do that at the end of the training. So we were able to get 3 employees to get their D license, water and wastewater licenses, and then 3 employees received some hours toward their renewal. So a real beneficial program. Personnel update, I wanted to give you a little update. Is there somebody that can do a drum roll for me?
Need one, don't we?
We do need one. The elected department is fully staffed. And I don't know how long it's been since it's been fully staffed, because it was before I started over a year ago. So Brian Wheatley's pretty tickled about that. I think we found some good folks. You know, we had to go outside the community and bring some people in from, actually from other states. So we've increased the population of Perry, and we've added to the enrollment of the public schools through those hires. So, so that's been one of the things that we're pretty proud of being able to do. So waiting and waiting for the right people, it was worth it, but it was pretty stressful there for a while. We filled 2 police officer vacancies and a dispatcher vacancy in the police department. And this week, we're interviewing for a firefighter and a call fireman. So Lane will be busy interviewing those folks today and hopefully, or this week, and hopefully we'll find one that will work for Perry. Also, in the personnel arena, Hank Nida, our water and wastewater superintendent, has decided to resign, and so he will, I think it's through the end of November, well, towards the end of November will be his last day officially on the payroll, and we've already started advertising for that position. We're hoping that we can attract some good folks that we can interview and find the right person that can lead that department and help us. We have a lot of projects on the books ready to go, and so we're going to need somebody that can get it running. The City of Perry participates in the Oklahoma Municipal Retirement Fund for its employee retirement program, and Jody Cox, who's with OMRF, she's the Member Services Director. She was here last week, met with about a dozen employees. We invited all of them to come in. This retirement program only covers the non-uniform, so police and fire have their own retirement programs through the state. So this is all for non-uniform employees, and so about 12 people took advantage of it. And it was, you know, they were able to ask questions and maybe get some projections on what their retirement would be if they retired in a couple of years or 5 years or whatever the case may be. Perry was one of the original founding members of the Oklahoma Municipal Retirement Fund when it was formed in 1966. It's been a good decision for Perry. It's the predominantly provides most of the retirement programs for the communities in Oklahoma. So, the final thing is tomorrow I'm going to, I was invited to make a presentation to the Perry Study Club, and the presentation that I'm making is one that I had made when the Oklahoma State Preservation Conference was hosted by the Perry Main Street program. Is that the spring? I kind of lose track of time a little bit. So anyway, the presentation is on the CCC Perry Lake Park, and I had the opportunity to do that presentation because the mayor wasn't able to be there, so I've really learned quite a bit about CCC Perry Lake Park. And I must have done okay on the presentation because I was asked by the Perry Study Club to come and give it tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to being a speaker at that group. They're a great group of people, and I enjoy visiting with them. So.
Questions or comments for Mary? Wow, you must have done good. All right, thank you for that. Now we'll move to item number 8, which is the financial officer's report. And Russ, I guess we are going to have to give you a pass. I know your back is still ailing you some, which is why you have to stand from time to time. But hang in there, buddy. You're making it.
Well, I appreciate that, Mayor, and sorry for maybe the disruption of standing up, but it does ease the.
You look so very, very good.
What? Thank you. Thank you. Ms.
Oh, the
Gordon.
haircut.
So, you guys do have your financials in front of you. You know, one of the reasons that you have them in front of you was because of the training that was going on here last week, and all of the computers were tied up. So we didn't have any time last week to dial in and get any of the information. So needless to say, you still have them tonight, which is all that really matters. But I apologize for that as not being at your desk or in your packets over the weekend for you to look at. If you will, running down, you know, our cash schedules, as always, you can see, you know, you can see where we're setting. We're up, you know, pretty much in our general fund and in our utility fund cash for the month, which is good news for us. We like to be up in those. Nothing significant, and we still have cash on hand, which is always the most important thing for us. We don't like to be short on cash. Looking at your budget versus actual, we should be about 34% through the year, 33-34% at this point. As you'll see, our sales tax number, we're at about 41%, so we are pushing to be in excess of our 10% that we expected as a reserve on our budgeting side, so that will be good. Use tax by itself is up significantly. There again, use tax is something we honestly have no control over, and trying to project use tax is even more of a gamble than trying to pick the Derby winner today. If you guys want to throw out a number, and we'll talk about it in May, but it'll be about the same odds of knowing exactly where that use tax number is going to come. So anyhow, it being up means that we did budget conservative, which is always what I want to tell you guys we've done. Running on down through the expenses, you'll see everybody's really targeting around their 35% number. There's a couple that are a few percentages over. Those are we have justified reasons for why those are a little high. Specifically, if you're looking at economic development, it is higher because of purchase of LMP property so early in the season. So that number is significantly up. Overall, though, in the general fund, nothing significant. Betty's not here, but if she was, I would tell her that we had another good month on our hotel motel tax collection, another month over $40,000, which is another good number. Setting aside some of those funds, as you will remember, to pay for our bond proceeds that we've done for the ED projects that are going on. Running on down to the Perry Municipal Authority, looking at our electric, water, and sewer. As you'll see, our electric running at about 42%. That is honestly, it's about 2% higher than where we would expect based on seasonality, so we are still up there. Our wholesale cost of electric does trail us by 1 month, and based on the temperatures that we had in October, the reasonably high for that season, we still have a little bit more of a bill that's going to carry over. So that number, net profit wise, will actually come down as we get through the next month. Water, sewer, and trash, all where we would expect them, and likewise with our administrative fees and transfers. I think we're setting well for coming out of October, going into the winter months. As far as utilities go, these are the months that we get a little tighter on. You know, we don't have the revenues because people aren't running their air conditioners and running their sprinkler systems. So these months, starting now, running this through really the 1st of March, are when we will see month-to-month losses in those utility departments. We always try to control costs during that period, but we build that in knowing that these are going to be our slower months. So with that, I'll take any questions, anything specific you guys have. I'd love to answer.
Questions or comments for Russ? All right, Russ, thank you. Your back gets to feeling better.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. All right, we'll move to item number 9, which is to consider approval of resolution 2013-21 of the City Council, City of Perry, Oklahoma, appointing representative to serve on the election committee of the Oklahoma Municipal Power Authority. Council members, as a result of my announcement, beginning in December, we won't have a voting member on the election committee for the OMPA. And of course, the election committee is made up of all the members in the OMPA, which is 39 cities. And they're the ones that are responsible if there's any special meetings or annual meetings that come up for making votes and changing the course of OMPA. So it's important that we continue to have a representative. It seems to be the general direction that most all the cities for an election committee member are going with their city manager because of the consistency of the city manager position. And so that's the reason that staff has recommended that we appoint Mary as the election committee representative on the OMPA.
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution 2013-21 of the City Council of the City of Perry appointing a representative to serve on the election committee of the Oklahoma Municipal Power Authority. Will there be discussion? Seeing none, votes in order.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dow,
Yes.
Moxley,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Norman,
Yes.
Nation,
Yes.
Wade,
Yes.
Hall.
Yes. Okay, we'll move to item number 10, which is consider approval of resolution 2013-22, the City Council of the City of Perry authorizing establishing the City of Perry Christmas Lighting Electric Rebate Program, providing for public purpose, providing for the amount and limitation on the rebate is provided in Exhibit A. Council members, I guess with the exception of Clayton, you're all aware that this is where we get in the Christmas spirit and encourage everybody to put up their Christmas lights. If they do that between the time period of December 7th and January 1st, and they run them the majority of the time between 6 and 10 p.m., and they come to City Hall and register, then in February we'll afford them a $25 rebate on their electric bill. And this kind of works in conjunction with a local bank who sponsors the lighting contest, and so it also gives the citizens that jump into the program an opportunity to even win some more money to cover the extra cost.
Move to approve 2013-22 and Exhibit A. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution 2013-22, providing for the amount and limitations on the rebate as provided in Exhibit A. Will there be discussion? Comments? Voted is.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dow,
Yes.
Moxley,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Norman,
Yes.
Nation,
Yes.
Wade,
Yes.
Hall.
Yes, now we move to item number 11, and I'm going to save reading this whole thing until the vote. But it's consider approval of ordinance 2013-28, amending Chapter 5 of the Perry Municipal Code pertaining to the establishment of lower permit fees and several other issues. I want to cover them all, and of course we have Jason here that can address any questions you have. But I think Mary reported to you at our last meeting that we had a nice meeting with the area contractors to really ask them, what kind of issues are you running in with as it relates to codes and code enforcement, et cetera. And I think we talked extensively on a lot of the comments that we hear on the street as it relates to codes in the city and how all that jives and gels. We made, I don't know if I would call them promises, but, well, I will call it a promise. We promised to do our best to try to improve from our side if there's places that we can improve. And one of the things that came out of that meeting, and I can see this, and if you were a local contractor, you would really feel this pain, that permitting fees, you recoup that cost when you do the work out of whoever you're working for. If there's other communities that have lower permitting fees, or you're dealing with bigger groups who can absorb those permitting fees and not pass that along to the customer, it really puts our local people at a disadvantage. So after a lot of debate, we're recommending as part of this in this ordinance that we lower the residential building contractor's fee from $300 in the $200 renewal to $50 per year. For years, we have required our local contractors to do an annual contractor's fee. And of course, I'm assuming they're all good business people. They're going to include that in their cost of service, and that makes it more difficult for them to compete potentially with outside contractors. And so that's one thing that we're proposing tonight in this ordinance. We are also taking a real strong look at the overall permits, even outside the annual fee, as it relates to building permits, plumbing permits, and electric permits, and mechanical contractor permits. And you can see if you've read this proposed ordinance that every permit that we have on our books we're suggesting that we lower that cost of permit. Again, it's a win-win situation. It's a win for the contractors. It's a win for the end user. They're paying less. All of this, folks, is designed to, I hope, what will carry on, and that is to send the message that we want to help you improve your properties, and we don't want to make it more difficult for you to improve your properties. We also are providing for a simpler way for contractors to receive and pay for their permitting. This is something that is going on all across America, taking advantage of technology where you can call in and put the city on notice of your intent to purchase a permit, or you can do it through email, or potentially, and hopefully one day, we'll have a website established where you can go in, log in as your contractor and make the request for the permit. And then what we'll do, so you don't have to take the time to come to City Hall and have that thing issued out, we'll just bill that out to you. And so it's an attempt to really be on the contractor's time schedule rather than the contractor having to be on City Hall's time schedule. And so that's certainly a good thing. And then finally, the thing that we're really taking a look at is, of course, the timing couldn't have been greater tonight. We had a series of nasty tornadoes that happened over in the Northeast. We know what went on in the May tornadoes. Every time these cycle of horrible events happen, people start to think, I probably should put in a storm shelter. And I certainly would recommend that. One of the things that the city can do and does and should do better with is making sure that these citizens are registering these storm shelters when they put them in. And a lot of people are just thinking, I want to take care of my family, get the storm shelter put in, and I'm good. What you don't think about is that if your house gets wiped out and your entire house is sitting on top of that storm shelter, who knows to come look for you? And so if we require them to register, it's in their best interest. And then we have a list. The chief, the fire and police have a list, and they, in the event of a storm, that's one of the things that the city then can do, is look at that list and go around and make sure that we don't have anybody trapped inside. So it was recommended that we create a very inexpensive permit, a one-time permit of $10 for you to register your facility. Again, after a lot of debate and discussion, I won this one, thankfully, is to create an amnesty period. We are, a lot of people are anxious to get something because we're thinking about it. And so, that's one. That's one. Our goal was to include an amnesty period until June of 2014. You still are going to need to come in and register, but you won't have to pay the $10 to register. Following that, this ordinance would put in place $10 for the registration costs. If you're putting in, I don't know what it is, but if it's $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for one of these facilities, certainly $10 for a lifetime or an owner registration is worth it and very inexpensive. So that's what the ordinance does. It's designed to make life easier on the contractors and the citizens, both financially and for their own safety, in that we can maintain the list for the storm shelters. Be pleased to address any questions, and if I can't do it, we got the man back there that can make it happen.
And this is kind of the first of, proposed changes in response to the meeting that we had with the tradesmen and the contractors. We'll be addressing some other issues at future meetings.
I know this was a hot topic every time I go into the local hardware lumber store. And it's a hot topic there, and it still continues to be as we look at these ordinances on permitting. And I know that the guys I've talked to and heard from are glad we're doing something. And I am too, quite frankly, because I have a building, I have electricians come in, I have plumbers come in. And if they need a permit, I want to make sure that everything is taken care of. And that type of deal. So it's real important to all of us, homeowners, business owners, renters, leasers. Thank you.
What would you like to do with it?
Move to approve 1328.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve the ordinance 1328. I can't do this all in one breath, so here we go. Lynn. This is amending Chapter 5 of the Perry Municipal Code 2012 pertaining to the establishment of lower permit fees and other methods of providing better customer service by the amendment of Section 5106C by the addition of subsection 2 concerning a new permit process for certain contractors and by the amendment of Section 5112A2 Make yourself comfortable, I'm about a quarter of the way through. Providing for an amendment fee for residential building contractors by the amendment of Chapter 18 of the Perry Municipal Code 2012, by the amendment of Section 5-106, providing for the additional definitions for storage, sheds, accessory buildings, and carports and decks, and providing for a new permit fee for storm shelters, providing for an amendment to Section 5112, providing for amendment annual fee for residential building contractors, providing for an amendment of Section 5-204C, amending the permit fee for plumbing inspection fees, providing for an amendment to Section 5-305C, amending permit fees for electric permit inspections, providing for an amendment to Section 5-404C, providing for amendment permit fees for mechanical inspection fees, and providing for certain deletions, repealer, savings, codification, severability, and providing for penalty. Does everybody understand? I knew that was coming.
This one would pay Bryce for.
That's right. Be paid by the word.
As the moneymaker, wouldn't it?
That's right. We have a motion and a second. Does everybody understand what we're voting on? Please understand what we're voting on. All right, let's move to that.
Stroller.
Yes.
Dow.
Yes.
Moxley.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Norman.
Yes.
Nation.
Yes.
Wade.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes. All right, we'll move to item number 12. Any new business needs to come before the Perry City Council. Seeing none, we'll move to item number 13, which is consider convening to executive session to confer on matters pertaining to economic development at the Perry Commercial Park and the Perry South Commercial Park, as public disclosure would interfere with the development and implementation of the economic development agreement for the possible location of new business at any of the locations pursuant to 25 OS 307 C10. And before we seek any action, I might tell Gloria that I'm not anticipating any action as a result of executive session.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion second to convene into executive session. Roll call, please.
Stroller.
Yes.
Dow.
Yes.
Moxley. Johnson.
Yes.
Norman. Nation.
Yes.
Wade.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
I'm talking about it. Oh, yeah, that's right. She's not
She's not watching Channel 9.
Good point. She'll still be happy.
Yeah.
I don't think she's watching 19.
That's good. All right, I'll entertain a motion to reconvene.
So moved.
Second.
And motion second to reconvene. I feel good about this. Roll call.
Stroller.
Yes.
Dow.
Yes.
Moxley.
Yes.
Johnson.
Present.
Yes.
Norman. Nation.
Yeah.
Wade. Hall.
Yeah. Any action that needs to be taken as a result of executive session? Seeing none, we move to item number 7.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
We all agree.
What'd you say?
Pretty close.
Actually, what's 7?
Yeah, you said 7. wasn't
It'd be
7.
16.
That's 7.
Oh, wrong deal.
Yes.
Sorry.
Stroller. Dow. Moxley.
I was looking back right quick to
Norman.
see what we
Last.
got.
Nation. Wade.
Yeah.
Hall.
Item number 6. Item number 16. All right, careful.